So, you want to build from the diaspora and you're wondering how do you start, how do you finish, how do you make sure it's successful? This would be the right channel for you. I've had experience building a couple of projects in Ghana whilst being away, and there are a couple of learnings I've had, but also lots of insights that I think, being someone who was very much involved in the work, I am able to share. So my aim is to have this channel as a means to share that. There are many channels that talk about how to build, what to put in there, and all of that. They've been useful information for me to understand certain things. And so this is not going to be one of those channels. I think there are enough coverage for the actual details of building, although occasionally I would share some of those details, because I think it's worth showing the way I go about getting I went about getting some things done, because I've noticed that in some cases people just go with the status quo. They go with what is there without actually exploring certain things, and it's fine. Status quo is stable. Status quo is going to give you what is tried and tested, but it also means it comes with all the baggage. It comes with all the things that you may not necessarily desire about them if you had an alternative. All right, so let's get on with it. Where do we start? In this series, which is going to maybe be a 10-part series, I'm going to share different aspects of making sure that your building project in Ghana, especially when you are not present, is successful. And the very first place to start, for those who haven't started already, you are in good hands, is to choose the right project for you and actually plan. To choose the right project for you and actually plan. And I'm going to explain some of this and show you some. And in the future I'll be showcasing some of the projects I've worked on, or a particular one which I would highlight quite often. But planning is everything. Planning is everything. In fact, I'll take the liberty to quote a Bible verse in Luke chapter 14 verse 8, which says that suppose you want to build a tower, won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete that? Now, it was not talking about a building project alone, this particular verse, but it's still a lesson to be learned or to be applied specifically to building projects, which is planning. Planning is important. I'm not saying be too elaborate or meticulous, trying to find or writing everything, although that would help you a lot. But at the very least, have some planning around the costs, around the type of building that is suitable for you. It should meet your desires, so you need to assess the reason why you are doing them, and I'll touch on each of these points, and even how you make the best use of the land that you have. You have to take some time to think about this. Don't just rush into it. The thing you have to know is that a building project can take multiple months if you have the funds available already, and it can actually take years. I think averagely people probably spend about 5 years to finish their projects, and there are some which go as long as 10-15 years. And if that was the plan right from the beginning to do that, then kudos to these people. But in some cases, people just do not plan to take that long to get to their project, and they get surprised. Why? Because they didn't actually know what it takes to achieve that, right? So planning is everything. Now let's touch on costs. When you start a building project, what do you typically do? You are going to get an architectural drawing, and with that you're also going to get your bill of quantities, or someone to tell you how much it's going to cost to actually put up that structure. Now, the costs of not doing this, especially if it's a complex, let's say 2 or 3 story building, of not getting a proper professional to do this, you might not immediately notice that, but it's something that would come back in the future to hurt you in different ways, right? So pay up. If it's 5,000, if it's 3,000 cedis, whatever the amount is, and there are a lot of options out there, right? So find the right option, find the right payment, make sure the right architect, make sure that you are able to get at the very least some drawing that shows you how it's going to look like, that gives you also the structural drawing. Get a structural engineer and a quantity surveyor to give you the cost estimates. And it's very okay to get cost estimates from different people. Just make sure that where they vary a lot, you understand what they are putting into it, who is putting what into what, right? Like, different people would estimate things in different ways, and apart from the administrative and professional costs involved in the building, which may differ for different people, certain engineers may use or may consider the use of certain materials or methods and practices to achieve your building project, right? So depending on what they use or the path they take, your cost may differ. So let's take, for instance, some engineer decides to just estimate without including things needed to ensure that your foundation is damp proof, right? All that cost will not be included in there. So you have to poke at it. You have to make sure you understand exactly what will go into that and what is required to achieve maximum success for your project. And so the cost is really important. At that stage, you want to ask questions and do a little bit of research for yourself, right? Don't just, unless you are giving this to a super professional organization that you fully trust and you have all your money available and you don't really care, you can just dish out $200,000 and then have them start your project. If you are in that camp, maybe this is not the video for you. But if you actually care about every dollar that you put into your building, you want to make sure that you've given a lot of thought into all the aspects of the cost. In our case, there were some things that maybe ended up being cheaper than we were expecting them. When we would look into it, it was like, okay, because this material of that quality is being used for this purpose, right? And there are certain things that we would then go on to actually insist that they use or they do it in a particular way, and that has helped us a lot. But that also means that our cost went up. But over time, in the long term, we expect to benefit from that. So cost is very important. Don't cut it too little just because you are on a budget, but also don't let your cost get overblown because certain things are getting added or you don't understand certain things in your cost structure. Okay, so this is very important. It's your money. So ensure that you're actually having that discussion with whoever is quoting. Don't let someone just quote 200,000 CDs or $200,000 and just accept it. Actually poke at it and ask the right questions. Now, this is a very important aspect, and it ties also into the type of house that you want. Obviously, if you want to build a very big house, then it means that you would have to get a lot of money to fulfill that. If you want to build a story building, it has to come with certain costs, right? And so you have to cut your coat according to your cloth, right? You have to cut your coat according to your cloth. So when it comes to the type of house you want to build, many people just set out to build or look to build their dream house. And again, it works out for different people in different ways. I personally feel that if you are not at a certain age, you are not about to retire and all that, like, you should give some thought to the type of building you put up, right? Because the moment you pour cement onto the ground, the moment you do all of those things to get a building, the building itself, if it's let's say your dream house, very nice, very elaborate, and it's not yielding any income, if you're a young guy, then that is not the best way to go about it. If you've made all your millions and you're just using a little part of it to build your dream house, that's perfectly fine, right? So consider carefully the type of house, the type of project you want to embark on. Don't just get up and build some 2 or 3 story building because everyone is doing it or because it's nice. Again, back to the costs. If you look at it critically, typically they will tell you the costs to actually putting up your structure, the skeleton. So it doesn't include furnishings, doesn't maybe typically include windows, and it doesn't include things like putting a septic tank or a biodigester, getting electricity into your building. Like, there are a whole lot of things that happen after the main structure is put up, which can cost as much or twice or thrice, depending on your taste, as putting up the structure. So if you start out and you're like, the cost is 100,000, I'm able to handle it, and the cost you're actually referring to is just the cost of putting up the structure, just be aware that when the structure is done, you are not done. You still need to put a lot more, twice the amount you've already put in, to get the house in a livable state. So the question you have to ask yourself is the current costs the true cost of getting it done? And if you don't understand that, or if you don't know that, you need to actually sit down again with the people you are working with to make sure that you understand the cost structure. There are lots of people with uncompleted buildings in Ghana. Some may be intentional, but a vast majority of these actually did not understand the cost. I'll even give myself as an example, because I got the cost estimate for, let's say, putting up the skeleton. I was excited. It sounded like it's possible to quickly finish it up and then do the other things. But a few months in, I quickly realized that this is going to really take a lot. And the thing about building is, until you are done or you get it into a livable state, you are just not benefiting. So let's say if you spent 100,000 so far pouring cement and doing all kinds of things and getting your building out, until you are able to get it into a livable state. It's like you've just opened the ground and put $100,000 there, and it's just doing nothing. Possibly even rotten in some cases for some people who never finished their building project. So very, very important to understand your cost. If you know, let's say your cost came, you saw that the cost they said is 50,000, but you know that after that you are going to need to spend another 50,000 to get everything in place, and you realize that okay, so your true cost is 100,000. You make your projection and you realize that okay, you cannot actually meet that commitment. What do? You scale down, maybe reduce the size of the building, you reduce it from a story building. See, if it's your personal house, you don't really, there are certain reasons or certain ways you should think about whether it's worth it to build a story building or not. And maybe in the future I'll get the opportunity to share that. You can indicate that. But the point is that your type of building would affect the cost, and so know the true cost and adjust your building to meet that cost structure. The other thing we've spoken about is how to make the most use of your land. I think one of the compelling reasons why people consider building story buildings, of course, is because they have some small land space, maybe a half plot, and that is something you have to decide for yourself, right? Assuming the half plot. So the way I think about it is this: if I have a quarter or a half plot in cantonments, and let's say it is worth $500,000, then the thinking is that for every structure I put on, like for every floor that I add, and maybe adding a new floor and the decking and everything costs, let's say, 15,000. It means every floor that I've added, I've used 15,000 to purchase another $500,000 plot, if you get what I mean, right? So every decking you do, you've had another. So the higher you go, it's like you've just exchanged 15,000 for 500,000. In those cases, it makes absolute sense to go up. But even so, you have to plan carefully, because you don't want to be left in a space where you've gone up 3 levels, but your house is not livable and you've dried out of funds, right? So very important. Now, if your land is in an area where the cost is $5,000, bear in mind that every decking is $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So going up is not as beneficial in that sense, right? Because if you keep going up, you're actually paying more with an amount of money that you could have used to acquire more land. So think about it that way and decide what really works for you. And even if you finally decide you have to go up, then you have to think carefully about the cost implication, factoring in the cost of finishing your house. Like you'll be done with the structure and to look all good, but you have to roof it, you have to put windows on it, you have to paint it, you have to plaster it. All of these add incremental costs that can drastically affect your budget. All right, so I know you are eager to start. Think about this, plan carefully, and make sure that the costs and the type of house meet your demands and your reasons. Watch out for part 2. Again, this will be about a 10-part series. Watch out for a part 2 where I talk about getting the right person and being involved and avoiding the problems, and also saving costs along this project. Until then, see ya.